Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Arizona Monthly Housing Market Update. I'm Katie, and
I am Matt, and
I am Ryan. Welcome, everyone.
welcome, team. This is like one of my most favorite times of the month because I value you guys so much. I think you are amazing professionals with what you do, and I love coming together and hearing what you have to say about what happened over the last month, what's to come in the near future. So let's hop right into it, guys. And as always, Ryan, you're always on first. So let's talk about rates. It's been so exciting.
You get the boring rate stuff out of the way first, so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Just to kind of get things started for October, Halloween month, it was scary for mortgage rates in the spirit of Halloween. We hit our 12-month low on rates at the end of September, but rates unexpectedly reversed this trend, and they started increasing right at the start of October. And there's several reasons for this. First, that the Fed had been keeping an eye on the economy. And the big reason why they did drop the funds rate, as we discussed last month, 0.5%, was their concern about, the drops that we were seeing in hiring and spending. Everything was kind of slowing. So,
Right.
They wanted the drop rates to kind of pick up the economy and really avoid being too restrictive in getting us into a recession. That's kind of the balancing act of the Fed. They want to keep the economy going. They want to keep inflation low. But October brought some surprise numbers, and hiring and retail spending was strong, and consumer confidence was higher than expected. So they weren't really expecting to see this. So the Fed, really what they're saying is they're concerned maybe they drop rates a little too much too early. These positive reports could hurt inflation. And as we always discuss, higher inflation does mean higher mortgage rates. So that's part of the reason. And then to add to this, of course, we do have the election. And, really, you don't win elections by campaigning on, slowing spending and slowing the economy to help inflation. That won't get you votes, obviously. So the uncertainty of who will win and possibly, inflationary policies, not really knowing which side it's going to be, that also kind of weighs on rates a little bit. So that's why this October has been a little bit different than other ones. It's an election year. But, year over year, the inflation, the positive is it held steady still. And that report came out today at 2.7%, actually. I'm reading it right here. So very close to the Fed's target of 2%, and such a big drop that we've seen since 2023. So the Fed, they will continue to drop their rates. It's just a matter of when. And inflation should continue to drop, really, as shelter costs, which is mainly rent, is going down a little bit. So that's going to help with inflation and help with rates. And, so we should resume to see the rates drop, and even after this October jump that we've seen.
And are you seeing any buyers holding back, sitting the fence? What has applications been like in your world over the last couple of weeks? Are you having conversations about the upcoming elections? Is there hesitation there?
Yes, we definitely see people on the fence, plus, buying really did pick up quite a bit, like in September. I think there was more optimism, and we did see a jump in active buyers and contracts. So, and then right when October kind of hit, that definitely waned as people were seeing that rates were going up. And of course, the election and the uncertainty, there's just a lot, and we do notice that people are sitting on the sidelines. But at the same time, we are seeing some people who are just finding that right house and the right deals out there. And as inventory has gone up a little bit, I think we're close to, I think it was over 19,000. I know you posted on it, Katie, on Instagram. It was 19,260 was where inventory is, which is, I think you guys could probably correct me, but we're getting close to pre-pandemic levels. So I feel like inventory is, bouncing out a little bit. And with less buyers, we do see the ones who are really finding the right home, getting some deals, getting closing costs paid for. So we are still seeing those buyers out there.
Totally agree. And we're seeing that as well. September was huge for us, which came off kind of a more quiet summer. So that was kind of nice. It felt like life was being breathed back into everything again, which was great. And I will agree with you. We have noticed, especially over the last week, it's been a bit quiet. And I think, there's a multitude of things happening out there. And of course, there's a big distraction going on out there now, which I kind of appreciate because there's a lot less stupid real estate headlines out there. You know what I mean? Like they've gotten done with picking on us realtors in our industry, and now they're picking on somebody else. So it's kind of a nice break for us. But I have also seen it's kind of interesting what's going on for us right now. So just in terms of our listing inventory, personally for our team. Okay, so we have a couple of properties that went under contract, and they went under contract rather quickly with multiple offers, Ryan. Okay,
Yeah.
right? Who talks multiple offers these days? Well, we saw them. And then we have another handful of listings that are kind of hanging out a little bit longer. And the real big difference, it's simple, guys, is the listings that were priced aggressively were the ones that went quickly and had multiple offers. It's that simple. The ones that aren't priced so aggressively are kind of getting those lower ball offers, are attracting buyers that are looking more for the deal. And that's really what we've been experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of seeing the same thing right now. And it's an interesting balance. And I think it's so important to have the right representation and the right realtors, because if you know who you're working with and they know how to price things in this market, we are seeing multiple offers and bidding wars, and which I think some of our buyers are surprised to see. They're like, oh, there's 3 other offers on this home. Like, I thought things were a little slower, but yeah, if you're priced right, your house is going to move.
100%. So funny little story for you. We had an open house over the weekend on one of those listings that I told you went rather quickly. We listed it on Thursday. We were under contract with an over the list price cash buyer by Sunday. Okay. Saturday, very, very heavy traffic, very busy open house. Probably 25 groups came through in a 3-hour period, which is pretty darn good right now. Go talk to some of my other colleagues that have, they're whistling in their open houses because nobody's coming in. And so a buyer came into the open house. Obviously, it's, looks like a party in there. And they showed some interest in the home, but that agent didn't get in touch with me until Sunday, which is like, gee, read the room, dude. There's a ton of activity on this property. You might have wanted to have this conversation with me a little sooner. But anyway, so she gets in touch with me on Sunday, and I said, hey, we've got 4 offers that we're looking at right now. Really looking strong at this cash offer. I'm going to be real, frank with you here. And she said, well, we're not cash, but my buyer is putting a bunch of money down, and so it'll be a very small loan. And I said, cool. Please confirm with the lender for me that there's going to be an appraisal waiver on this. And I think you're going to be pretty competitive with this cash buyer that I have, right? Like I'm giving her a chance, And she said, okay, I'll do that. And she contacted me about 5 minutes later and said, well, my lender's taking the day off. It's Sunday. I don't know. I think he's out golfing or something. I think he deserves that because it's Sunday. Can you wait? No, I'm sorry. I work for the seller. I totally appreciate people having time off. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to do that, but weekends is when real estate happens. Yeah. And so, this poor gal, she lost out. So she spun her wheels with me for a little while and unfortunately lost out on the property. She's going to be in backup position most likely, but that stings. And she lost that because, like you said, representation is super important, but the team that you work with, including your lender, right? There's more people on the team than just your agent team, is really important too. Now, Ryan, I know because I've worked with you for so long that doesn't happen with your team, because if you are out enjoying yourself, which you totally should do, you deserve that, you work hard, somebody is there to pick up the slack for you there. And then that's like with our team too, like somebody is there to cover, because this is such an important thing for people and families. Anyway, off my soapbox, but that's what happened over the weekend. And I thought that was crazy. Like you're here fighting for this property and you're really not fighting.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that for that buyer. And yeah, I mean, you guys know it's a 24/7 business, and we really care about our buyers. And when we find that right house, you got to be there for them, and if I'm not there, my team will be. So that's unfortunate. But again, it's you got to be careful who you're working with and make sure that they're available when you need them. Absolutely. And they have that
100%.
backup to be there to help out. Yeah.
100%. It's so important. Another little quick funny story, Matt. I just saw you start to say something, and now I'll get off, I promise. But
No, it's okay.
same open house. One of the agents, because there's a bunch of properties in this neighborhood that have been listed for like the entire summer, right? And they're still listed. One of the agents came in and started giving us the what for having such a busy open house and for having such a competitive price on our property. And the only answer we have is, you need to price things right for the condition. Like, that's our answer. Sorry, you didn't. Bye. So that was a funny story about the open house. Anyway, Matt, I'm so sorry. I'm taking up a lot of bandwidth here.
Oh, you're totally fine. I think it's just ultimately stemming off what you said before. It's your representation. And, once again, there's things that you can do and your realtor can do to be proactive and kind of understand your situation. And even before going in, figuring out what these parameters of yours are as the buyer, if you're representing them, and make sure that you understand like these contingencies and in these situations that could come up. So you have these conversations before you get put into this pickle on, the 11th hour on a Sunday. Because, there's definitely a few different approaches they could have taken, but, it's everyone, I guess, just does their best, but it's very, very important for, I think sellers and buyers to make sure they really, really understand that their representation is skilled, is seasoned, understands. In markets like this, it is almost four-dimensional chess, just because it's not like a heavily, weighted seller's market where it's like, all right, we're just going to be putting in our best offer and that's all we can do.
Right.
With this, you can't, you got to play the game, and you got to really be able to look forward to see, all right, what do you think they're going to respond to with this? What are all these ingredients that we're dealing with, and what's that risk to you, and how we could mitigate that? So they're confident and they're ready to go. And I see situations like this a lot. But it's also extremely important to educate, whether it's your buyer or your seller, to understand this, so they're not put in this position to make this, emotional knee-jerk reaction, or, yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I don't want to certainly discourage those buyers out there that are looking for a deal in this market, because you can absolutely find that.
Oh, absolutely.
You just got to look in the right place. Matt, you've been doing a lot of that.
Well, 100%. And I think in this situation, just like you said, you had another agent come in that had a listing in the area, and they were kind of like, why is it priced this? Well, guess what? That's where it should be priced.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you still also need to, if you're representing a buyer in this market, you need to let them understand that we're not just in this super strong buyer's market that you can just lob out low offers in any situation. If the home you like comes up fresh on the market and it is priced aggressively, we can't take that same approach that we'd be if we were going after something that was on the market for 30 days and overpriced. No,
Right.
we need to think about that. And I think that's 100% what's happened here. So,
and I had one of those 2 days on the market. I get an offer is 80 grand light.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and that's fine. And that's one of the other things, like in this market, like, especially with our sellers, when I communicate with them, it's like, hey, you got to understand that this is what's going to happen. You can't be emotional to this. I know it's super difficult, especially if it's a home that you have a lot of emotional value invested into it. Yeah. It's very difficult, but this is part of the game. This is part of what to expect. In these markets where it is a little bit more buyer friendly, people are going to take a swing at it. And I'll tell you what, most of these sellers, when you ask them, hey, would you do the same thing? They would say, yeah, I would. So that's
a great point.
And that's where they, usually say, okay. And what's great is if we're representing a seller and they're going to be a buyer, it's kind of like, hey, just be prepared. You're probably going to, it's not going to be as fruitful on the sales side, or you're going to get information you might not want. But guess what? We're going to be on the other side of this, and you're going to be doing the same thing. So it's a wash. It's just best to be prepared, I think, mentally for this, because if you're not, and you are having these expectations that you're going to it's going to be like 2022, that you're going to get all these offers and they're all going to be wonderful, you're going to be let down. And it's going to take some time for you to readjust. And if you're spending that time to readjust when it's critical of making decisions, you're going to be the one that loses. So it really comes down to, once again, the representation. And in not only educating you, but, understanding your personality, and what information and how to deliver this information to you. You can't just, if someone's emotional and they're selling their home because it's an emotional reason, you can't just deliver things black and white. You got to really understand and hear what they're dealing with, and figure out how to deliver this to them so they can really absorb it and not become defensive to it.
I think that is so giant that not a lot of people think about, or maybe they just don't talk about it. And I actually have a podcast episode coming out for my real estate fitness show about this. And it's about the emotions that buyers and sellers have to deal with. Now, more specifically, I have been working with this fantastic, I love her to death, this seller that I have. And like you said, Matt, it's her family home. She's been there for a real long time, and she's dealing with, she's unpacking a lot of emotions, right?
Yeah.
In preparation, in having strangers come into her family home where she raised her kids, and little Johnny walked over there. And you know what I mean? And these people who haven't done this in a very long time, or maybe have never done this at all, don't know to think about those potential, and it can be a flood of emotions that come, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so one big giant thing, and this is what you'll get with me, is we talk about that. We talk about, hey, it's going to be emotional. Once you get under contract, that's not where the emotions stop. In fact, they gear up a little bit more, right? They fire up even more because now it's happening. This is real. And we talk a lot about that. And I have found that it has gone so much better all around for everybody when we talk about those emotions and set those expectations. Like, yeah, it's gonna, like, I ripped the Band-Aid off, you know what I mean? And it's gonna be a thing. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's all rainbows and butterflies, because it's difficult. Even if you have the world's best representation on your side and nothing goes wrong, it's still difficult.
Yeah. And I think it's natural. And I think a lot of people, the consumer, will take the stance, especially when dealing with a realtor, if they haven't sold or purchased in a long time, or if they're brand new. You kind of lump sometimes realtors into the category more of like maybe being like a salesperson that you also need to kind of build a wall, and you can't be vulnerable with, and you can't tell what's really going on because, they might be out to get you, which the sad part is that's the furthest from the truth. If anything, it's more like an attorney-client relationship where, if you're being represented by an attorney and you did something wrong, it's best to be truthful and tell your attorney everything that you did so he's not caught in surprise and can do his job best. Same with a realtor. If you're dealing with emotional things or dealing with deadlines or financial issues or stuff, it is so much more beneficial to share this stuff and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Just so you know what I'm dealing with, so you can kind of position this to get me the best results.
I agree.
A lot
and
of people,
if you feel that way about your representation, then I think that's a huge red flag. You probably don't have the right person on your side.
Yeah,
right?
or you just need to take a deep breath and say, hey, what am I really doing here? Am I holding back information that's going to help this person help me? Or am I really doing something here that's really shooting myself in the foot? And I think, once again, we're all emotional creatures. So I think it's just, it's natural for us to do this, and different cycles, everyone gets affected differently. So,
for sure.
But it's so important, especially in these markets like this, when there are a little bit, there's volatility, it's best to really be clear. We work with people sometimes that are like, hey, I really need to sell, but then you got to really tell how much of that is, because the last thing you ever want to hear from the seller is like, okay, I'm in a bad spot now, and now I have to panic sell, because now everyone's in a position that, what are we supposed to do with that? If we knew this before, we can take a whole different approach. So I think it's just so important. And that really comes down to I'm sure, Ryan, you deal with this as well. And it's one of those things where it's our job as the professional to kind of lead our clients down this and allow them to feel comfortable and become vulnerable, versus be this like cut and dry, just business numbers. You're not going to get the response that's needed, and everyone will lose.
Oh, it's very emotional, it's an emotional roller coaster, especially
Yeah.
for like the loan business, of course, it could be tedious. You got to collect all your income documents and then you got to wait for the appraisal and you hope the appraisal comes in okay. You hope for your approval looks good and there's no issues. And on top of that, on the real estate side, you're getting home inspections and negotiating bins or items, which are your repair requests. And this is all crammed into usually a 30-day period. So it's a lot to go through. So I always think a good analogy is always, a good realtor and even a lender are good pilots where, there are going to be turbulence because you really can't, if you're flying on a plane, you're a pilot. Sometimes there is turbulence. You can't get around that. But
Right.
the point of the flight is to get you to point A to point B, and we'll get you to point B, and we'll be there through the turbulence, through the good times, through the smooth sailing, and when things do come up. So yeah, and good realtors and good lenders will kind of prepare you for that up front. I like to think we're kind of part-time therapists at times too, because you got to be there
Oh,
for that
100%.
emotional journey and they kind of talk everybody through it. So that's an important part of the process that people don't talk about that much anymore.
We
It
really truly
really is.
don't.
And I'm sure Ryan too, and I remember dealing with this, not so much, but where we'd always have issues in the past, probably about 10 years ago, I noticed it a lot where they would go to the lender, get approved, and then you'd find out like after you're in contract that they didn't talk about a debt that they had, or they tried to be sneaky and not like talk about things that they knew about and they thought that it could go undetected.
Mhm.
Um, and that's the type of situation that really puts everyone in a bad spot. And it's like, if you're just, true with yourself and true with the people you're working with right from the get-go, everyone wins.
Just like seller
And
disclosure.
yep,
Same
just like
thing.
so. Yep, same thing. So it's so important. And I think you'll end up seeing that when you have someone that's not as experienced, when they're representing you either as a lender or your realtor, there's almost this like they don't want to ask the question that's going to get them a scary answer.
Yeah.
And they hold their breath and they leave it up to be. And that's the last person you want representing you. You want someone that has the confidence to ask you the difficult questions and say, hey, what about this or this? Or, tell me more about this, versus just leaving it up to be and holding our breath. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah. We don't do that. It's all on the table with us.
Yeah. Well, got to be.
But it's
So,
necessary. It's
yeah.
absolutely necessary. All right, guys, great discussion. And again, I feel like the whole emotion thing and preparing to get into a transaction, whether you're sitting on the buyer side or the seller side, is giant. And again, just not talked about enough,
Yeah.
with as much as we see. So,
Yeah.
anything else while America waits to see what happens next, guys? Anything that we have missed?
No, but I think, go ahead,
Go ahead,
Ryan.
Matt.
Oh, I was just going to stem off what we were saying. And I think right now, this election, I think we say this after every election, but it seems like this one is definitely a lot more emotional. I definitely I feel like the identity politics on this one is just, it's really latched into every voter, whoever you're voting for. You have this like personal identity to them, and any attack on them and his attack on you. And therefore people feel like it's the end of the world. And we've been through this many, many times, hundreds of years. And what I'm saying and how this kind of translates to what we're saying is there are emotions. And I think if you are someone that's actively considered buying and selling, and you are just caught up in the emotions of this election, it is so important to just table those emotions. They are separate. Take a deep breath and really try to look at the sale or this purchase for what it is and how it is on your family and those metrics that you can control: your job, your timing, your schedule, your savings, the things you can control. All the other stuff is really noise. And I think if you put a lot of weight and time and bandwidth and energy into that, it's only going to just rob you from success and what you can control. So that's just my advice.
Well said, Matt. That's a great way to end it.
Agreed. All right, guys, until next time, if you want to check out any of our previous episodes, we've been at this for a little while now. So hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at Team Evo AZ. Scroll down just a short ways. You will see the playlist for the Arizona Monthly Housing Market Update. We are here each and every month on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find us. Just do a quick search for Arizona Real Estate Radio. There we are. Like, follow, download, rate, the whole deal. We appreciate you, and we will see you all next time. Bye, team.
Have a very happy
Everyone.
Thanksgiving.
That's right.